Europe, a continent of contrasts where ancient civilizations gave birth to modern ideals, and where history has been written in the ruins of empires, in the blood of revolutions, and in the pursuit of knowledge. From prehistoric beginnings to the present day, this is the story of Europe, a history that shaped the world. Long before Europe became home to the great civilizations of Greece and Rome, it was a land of hunters and gatherers. Tens of thousands of years ago, early humans roamed the continent. The Ice Age molded the landscapes, and nomadic peoples left their marks in the form of cave art and stone tools. The end of the Ice Age gave rise to the first Neolithic settlements. Around 8,000 years ago, agriculture began to spread across Europe from the Near East, leading to the rise of small communities and megalithic structures. Stonehenge, in southern England, remains one of the most iconic remnants of this era. Its purpose still debated by historians. Europe's first great civilization emerged in the Aegean. Ancient Greece laid the foundations for much of Western philosophy, democracy, and culture. City-states like Athens and Sparta became centers of power, trade, and learning. Philosophers like Socrates questioned the nature of morality and justice, while mathematicians like Pythagoras and Euclid laid the groundwork for modern science. Greek literature, drama, and the Olympic Games shaped traditions that endure today. But Greece was not destined to last as a dominant force to the West. The Roman Republic was rising. By the 1st century BCE, Rome had transformed from a small city on the Tiber River into an empire that spanned from Britain to the Middle East. The Romans adopted much from Greek culture, art, architecture, and religion. But they also added their own innovations, Roman engineering feats, such as their roads, aqueducts, and monumental buildings, symbolized their power. The Pax Romana, or Roman peace, ushered in a period of relative stability, but it was built on military conquest and control. For nearly 5 centuries, Rome would dominate Europe. But no empire lasts forever. By the 5th century CE, Rome was crumbling under the weight of internal strife and external pressures. Germanic tribes such as the Visigoths sacked the city in 410 CE, and the Western Roman Empire fell soon after. In its place, a patchwork of kingdoms and tribes emerged. Europe entered the Middle Ages, a period often called the Dark Ages. Though it was far more complex, feudalism became the dominant social structure, with kings, nobles, and knights governing lands, while peasants worked the fields. The church rose to unprecedented power during this time, not only as a spiritual authority, but also as a political force. The Pope's influence spread across Europe, leading to the Crusades, a series of religious wars in the 11th and 12th centuries aimed at reclaiming the Holy Land from Muslim control. By the 14th century, Europe was on the cusp of a cultural and intellectual revival. The Renaissance, beginning in Italy, marked a return to the classical ideals of Greece and Rome. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo explored new techniques in art, sculpture, and architecture, while thinkers like Petrarch and Machiavelli examined human nature and governance. At the same time, a religious upheaval was brewing. In 1517, Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the church door, challenging the practices of the Catholic Church. The Protestant Reformation split Europe in two, leading to wars and persecution between Catholics and Protestants. While religious conflicts raged in Europe, explorers were setting out across the seas in search of new lands and wealth. The Age of Exploration, led by figures like Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and Ferdinand Magellan, opened up vast new territories for European empires. Spain and Portugal dominated early exploration, establishing colonies in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Soon, England, France, and the Netherlands followed, sparking competition for control of trade routes and territories. Colonialism would shape global politics, economies, and cultures for centuries. By the late 18th century, new ideas about freedom and governance were spreading across Europe. The Enlightenment challenged the old order, promoting reason, science, and the idea that all men are created equal. These ideas helped fuel revolutions on both sides of the Atlantic. The French Revolution of 1789 shook Europe to its core. For the first time, a monarchy was overthrown by the people, and radical ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity took center stage. But the revolution was also marked by violence, as the Reign of Terror led to the execution of thousands, including King Louis XVI. Out of the chaos rose Napoleon Bonaparte, a brilliant general who would go on to conquer much of Europe. But his empire would be short-lived, as his defeat at Waterloo in 1815 restored the old monarchies. Though the seeds of change had already been sown, the 19th century saw Europe transformed by the Industrial Revolution. Factories replaced farms as the center of economic life, leading to rapid urbanization and the rise of a new social class, the working class. Steam engines, railways, and new inventions like the telegraph connected people like never before. At the same time, nationalism was rising. The unification of Italy and Germany in the mid-19th century reshaped the political map of Europe, as newly unified nations sought to assert their place in the world. But these tensions would soon lead to conflict. The early 20th century brought devastation to Europe. World War I, triggered by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, pitted Europe's great powers against one another in a brutal war of attrition. The conflict, fueled by nationalism and imperial ambitions, left millions dead and reshaped borders. But peace was short-lived. In 1939, Europe was plunged into another war, World War II, as Nazi Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, sought to dominate the continent. The war brought unspeakable horrors, including the Holocaust, which claimed the lives of 6 million Jews. After the war, Europe was divided once again, this time by ideology. The Cold War saw the continent split between the capitalist West, led by the United States, and the communist East, led by the Soviet Union. The Iron Curtain descended across Europe, and Berlin became the focal point of this division. This has been the entire history of Europe, a story that is still being written today.